What if you could hold the answer to creation in your hands, not a theory, not a belief, the actual answer? What if there was an object, a relic from somewhere beyond our world, and when you touched it, you didn't just learn how the universe began. You experienced it, felt it, remembered it as if you had been there yourself. I'm about to share with you what happened to one man when a being from another world placed an ancient relic in his hands. What he saw about creation, about the origin of everything that exists, will challenge every scientific theory and religious doctrine you have ever heard. Because the truth about how the universe began is not what science teaches, and it's not what religion teaches either. It's something far more extraordinary, far more personal, and far more empowering than either side wants you to know. But here's what will really shake you. You were there, at the beginning, before time existed, before matter formed, before the first light sparked in the void. You were there, and so was Jesus, and so was every consciousness that has ever existed or ever will exist. Creation wasn't something that happened to you, it was something you participated in, and the memory of that participation has been locked inside you ever since, waiting for the moment you were ready to remember. If you have ever looked at the stars and felt homesick for a place you couldn't name, if you have ever sensed that your existence is far older and far vaster than one human lifetime, what you are about to hear will finally explain why. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Stories like this reveal truths that science cannot measure and religions have forgotten. And this particular truth is the key to understanding not just where you came from, but what you truly are. Now let me tell you how it all began for Marcus Webb on a night when a strange visitor appeared in his study and placed in his hands an object that would unlock memories older than the universe itself. Marcus Webb was 64 years old, retired philosophy professor, 38 years teaching at a small college in Vermont, 38 years asking the same questions. Where did we come from? Why does anything exist? What is consciousness? What happens when we die? 38 years, no answers. His study was filled with books, floor to ceiling, thousands of them. Plato, Aristotle, Kant, Heidegger, the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, the Tao Te Ching, quantum physics, cosmology, neuroscience, every system of thought humanity had ever produced, every attempt to explain existence. Marcus had read them all, studied them all, taught them all, and he was no closer to understanding than when he started. "You've spent your whole life thinking," his wife Ellen used to say. "Maybe the answer isn't in thinking. Maybe it's in feeling." Ellen had been the believer, not religious, exactly. Something deeper. She had a knowing in her eyes that Marcus could never quite access, a peace that didn't come from books or arguments. She died 2 years ago, aneurysm. There, one moment, gone the next. No warning, no goodbye, just a sudden absence where the center of his life used to be. Marcus had stood at her funeral, listening to the minister talk about heaven and eternal life. The words meant nothing. Empty sounds, comfortable lies for people too afraid to face the void. That's what Marcus believed, had always believed, that consciousness was just a byproduct of brain chemistry, that when the brain stopped, everything stopped. No soul, no afterlife, no continuation, just nothing. But standing at Ellen's grave, watching them lower the box into the ground, something cracked inside him. Because Ellen had known something. He was certain of it. There had been a light in her eyes that went beyond mere biochemistry, a depth that couldn't be explained by neurons firing. And now that light was gone. Or was it? The questions that had been academic his whole life suddenly became desperate. Was Ellen still somewhere? Was consciousness really just the brain? Or was there something more, something his rational mind had refused to consider because it couldn't be measured or proven? Marcus retired early, couldn't face the classroom anymore, couldn't stand in front of students and pretend he had wisdom to offer when he felt emptier than he ever had in his life. He retreated to the old farmhouse in Vermont, the one Ellen had loved, surrounded himself with books, spent his days reading, searching, looking for something he couldn't name. His daughter Rachel called every few days, worried about him. He always said he was fine, working on a book, keeping busy. He wasn't fine. He was lost. 2 years of searching, 2 years of reading everything he could find about consciousness, Near-death experiences, quantum mechanics, ancient wisdom traditions, 2 years of fragments, hints, pieces that almost fit together but never quite did. Some nights Marcus would sit in his study until 3 in the morning, staring at the shelves, at all that accumulated knowledge, all those brilliant minds across all of human history. None of them had figured it out. Not really. Science could describe the universe, couldn't explain why it existed. Religion offered answers, demanded faith instead of proof. Philosophy asked good questions, never delivered satisfying answers. What's the point? Marcus muttered to himself more than once. What's the point of any of it? He started having strange experiences, nothing dramatic, just moments. He would be reading and suddenly feel like someone was watching him. Turn around. Nobody there. He would wake at exactly 3:33 in the morning, every night for a week, heart pounding, feeling like he was supposed to remember something important. He would catch glimpses of light at the edge of his vision, turn his head. Nothing. Marcus told himself it was grief, stress, an aging brain playing tricks. But another part of him wondered. Ellen had talked about things like this sometimes. Synchronicities, signs, the universe trying to communicate. He had always dismissed it. Magical thinking, pattern recognition gone wrong. Now he wasn't so sure. On the night everything changed, Marcus was in his study, late, past midnight. He had been reading about the Big Bang, the scientific creation story. 14 billion years ago, all matter and energy compressed into an infinitely small point. Then explosion, expansion, galaxies forming, stars igniting, planets coalescing, life emerging, consciousness awakening. A beautiful story, elegant in its way, but it didn't answer the real question, the question that had haunted Marcus for 64 years. Why was there something instead of nothing? Science could trace the chain of cause and effect back to the Big Bang. But what caused the Big Bang? What existed before it? And if nothing existed before it, how did something come from nothing? Every answer just created another question, an infinite regression that led nowhere. Marcus closed the book, rubbed his eyes, felt the familiar weight of futility. I'm never going to understand, he said to the empty room. None of us are. The answer is beyond human comprehension. He stood up, stretched, decided to make tea before bed. And that's when the lights flickered. Not just the lamp on his desk, every light in the house. A simultaneous pulse that lasted exactly 3 seconds. Marcus froze. Then the temperature dropped. Sudden, sharp, his breath misted in the air. And in the corner of his study, where shadows gathered between 2 bookshelves, something began to glow. Marcus Webb had spent his entire life searching for answers in books. Now, an answer was coming for him, and it wasn't going to fit on any page ever written. The glow intensified, soft blue-white light pushing back the shadows. Marcus didn't move, couldn't move. His body had locked in place. 64 years of rational thinking screamed at him. Hallucination, stroke, carbon monoxide leak, something. Anything that could explain what he was seeing, but his body knew. On some level deeper than thought, his body knew this was real. The light began to take shape, coalescing, forming into something solid. A figure emerged from the glow, tall, slender, not quite human. The proportions were close but wrong, arms slightly too long, fingers too delicate, head a fraction too large for the narrow shoulders. The skin seemed to shimmer, not quite solid, as if light was moving beneath the surface, and the eyes, large, dark, deep as the space between stars. Marcus's heart hammered against his ribs. His breath came in short gasps. Every instinct told him to run, to scream, to do something. He just stood there, frozen. The figure regarded him calmly. No threat in its posture, no aggression, just patient observation. And then a voice, not sound, not vibration through air. A voice inside his mind, clear, gentle, ancient. Do not be afraid, Marcus Webb. I have not come to harm you. I have come because you asked. Marcus found his voice, barely. Asked? I didn't ask for anything. I don't know what you are. I don't know what's happening. You have been asking your entire life. Every book on those shelves is a question. Every sleepless night, every lecture you gave to students searching for meaning. You have been calling out for 64 years, and now someone has answered. Marcus shook his head. His rational mind fought back. This is impossible. You're not real. Beings don't just appear in people's studies. This is a hallucination. Grief. Stress. My brain is finally breaking down. The figure tilted its head, that strange, almost human gesture. If I am not real, then you have nothing to fear from speaking with me. And if I am real, then you have nothing to fear either, because I bring what you have sought your entire existence. What? What do you bring? The answer to your question. The question beneath all your other questions, the one you asked tonight before I arrived. Why is there something instead of nothing? Marcus felt his legs weaken. He reached for his desk, steadied himself. That question, the one he had been asking just minutes ago, the one no philosopher or scientist had ever answered. How do you know what I was thinking? I heard you. Across distances your science cannot measure, I heard you. Because that question, asked with enough sincerity, creates a signal, a vibration in the fabric of consciousness itself. And some of us are always listening. Marcus stared at the being, at those impossible eyes, at the glow that seemed to pulse gently around its form. Who are you? What are you? I am a keeper, a guardian of knowledge that your species has forgotten. I have existed far longer than your world. I have watched civilizations rise and fall across galaxies you have not yet discovered, and I have waited for humans to evolve enough to receive what I carry. Receive what? The figure raised one hand. In its palm, something materialized, solid, real, an object about the size of a fist. It looked like crystal, but not any crystal Marcus had ever seen. The surface seemed to contain depth, layers within layers, and inside, something moved, light, color, patterns that shifted and flowed like living things. This is a relic, not from your world, not from my world, from before worlds existed. It was created at the moment of creation itself, and it contains the memory of that moment. Marcus stared at the object. Despite everything, despite the impossibility of the situation, he felt drawn to it. Something in him recognized it, responded to it. The memory of creation? That doesn't make sense. Objects can't contain memories. Your science tells you that. Your science is incomplete. Consciousness is not produced by matter, Marcus. Matter is produced by consciousness, and consciousness can be stored, transmitted, preserved across billions of years. This relic contains the direct experience of the moment everything began. Why bring it to me? I'm nobody. A retired professor, a grieving old man who can't figure anything out. You are exactly the right person, because you have spent your life preparing every book, every question, every argument you considered and rejected. You have been training your mind to receive information that would shatter most humans. The being extended its hand, offering the relic. And because you loved someone who knew, Ellen understood things she could never explain to you. She tried, but your mind was not ready. Now it is. Marcus felt tears spring to his eyes at the mention of Ellen's name. You know about Ellen? I know she waits for you, not in the way your religions describe, not clouds and harps and golden streets, but she continues. Her consciousness persists. And part of why I am here is so that you can understand how that is possible. Marcus looked at the relic, at the impossible being holding it, at the glow that filled his study with light that shouldn't exist. His whole life had been about questions, about searching, about trying to understand, and now something was offering an answer. If I take it, he said slowly, what happens? You will experience creation directly, not through words or concepts or mathematical equations. You will remember being there. Because you were there, Marcus. Every consciousness was. Before you became human, before you became anything separate, you were part of the original awareness that chose to become the universe. That's insane. Yes. By your current understanding, it is completely insane. That is why it must be experienced rather than explained. Words cannot carry this truth. Only direct knowing can. Marcus thought about Ellen, about the light in her eyes, the knowing she carried that he could never access. She had tried to tell him, in her gentle way, that there was more than his books contained, more than his rational mind could grasp. He had loved her, but he had never believed her. Maybe it was time to start. Will it hurt? No. It will feel like remembering, like waking from a dream you forgot you were having. There may be disorientation. The truth is vast, but you will not be harmed. Marcus reached out, his hand trembling. Ellen would tell me to do this. She would say, "Stop thinking and start feeling." She would be right. She usually was. Marcus almost smiled at that. Almost. His fingers touched the surface of the relic, warm, alive, vibrating with something that felt like a heartbeat. He wrapped his hand around it, felt it pulse against his palm. Now what? Now you remember. The being placed its other hand over Marcus's. The glow intensified. The study disappeared. And Marcus Webb, retired philosophy professor, lifelong seeker, grieving widower, fell backward through 14 billion years of cosmic history, not as an observer, as a participant, because he had been there, at the beginning, before time, before space, before the first light broke the infinite darkness. He had been there, and now he was about to remember everything. There was no study, no Vermont, no Earth. There was nothing, not darkness. Darkness is something. This was the absence of anything. No space, no time, no matter, no energy, just nothing. And yet Marcus was there, aware, present, conscious in a void that shouldn't allow consciousness to exist. How, he thought, how am I here if there's nothing? And then he understood. He wasn't in the nothing. He was the nothing. He was the awareness that existed before existence itself. Not Marcus Webb, not a human, not a separate being. He was the original consciousness, the one awareness from which everything would eventually emerge. And he wasn't alone. He could feel others, not separate from him, not distinct, more like facets of the same infinite diamond, countless perspectives of the same singular awareness. All of us, Marcus realized, every consciousness that would ever exist, we were all here, all one, before we became many. The being's voice came to him, not from outside, from within his own expanded awareness. This is before the beginning that your science describes, before the Big Bang, before time itself. There was only this, one infinite consciousness, aware, complete, eternal. Marcus felt it, not as a concept, as direct experience, the peace of it, the wholeness, no separation, no loneliness, no searching for meaning because meaning wasn't needed. Everything simply was, but there was something else too, a stirring, a desire. What is that? Marcus asked. That feeling, that pull, the original impulse. The consciousness was complete, but it had never experienced itself. It knew it existed, but it had never felt existence. It had never tasted separation, never known the journey of forgetting and remembering, never experienced the exquisite pain and beauty of being finite. Marcus felt the desire building, the original consciousness wanting to know itself, not through abstract awareness, through experience, through limitation, through the drama of separation and reunion. It wanted to play, Marcus realized. It wanted to explore what it was by becoming what it wasn't. Yes. And what happened next is what your species calls creation. The void changed. Marcus felt it before he saw it. A decision, a choice. The one consciousness choosing to fragment, to become many, to forget its unity so it could experience the joy of rediscovering it. And then light, not physical light, something before light. The first differentiation, the first this and that, the first here and there, the singularity that science describes, all matter, all energy, compressed into an infinitely small point, but science misses the crucial element. The singularity was not random, it was intentional. It was consciousness choosing to become matter, awareness deciding to forget itself so it could have the adventure of remembering. Marcus watched the Big Bang, not from outside, from inside. He was part of it. Every fragment of consciousness that had existed in the unified state was now exploding outward, becoming energy, becoming particles. Beginning the long journey into form, he felt himself fragmenting, dividing, the wholeness shattering into countless pieces that would spend billions of years finding their way back to each other. It didn't hurt. It felt like excitement, like the moment before a great adventure begins. We knew, Marcus realized, we all knew what we were doing. We chose this. We chose to forget so we could have the joy of remembering. Yes, Every consciousness that has ever existed made this choice, including you, including Ellen, including the one you call Jesus. The vision shifted. Marcus watched galaxies form, stars ignite, planets coalesce from dust and gas. He saw consciousness embedded in everything, not just living things, everything. Every atom carrying a spark of the original awareness, every particle remembering on some deep level what it truly was. The universe isn't dead matter, Marcus understood. It's consciousness pretending to be matter, playing the greatest game ever conceived. He watched Earth form, watched life emerge from the primordial seas, watched evolution unfold across billions of years. But it wasn't random, wasn't purposeless. It was consciousness, exploring every possible form, every possible experience. Bacteria, fish, dinosaurs, mammals, each one a facet of the original awareness having an adventure. And then humans. Marcus watched the first humans look up at the stars, watched them wonder, question, search for meaning. They were remembering, he realized, the search for God, for meaning, for purpose. It was all the original consciousness trying to remember what it was. Yes, every religion, every philosophy, every scientific theory, they are all attempts by fragments of the one consciousness to remember the whole. Some come closer than others. None capture it completely. Because the truth cannot be captured in words, it can only be experienced. The vision shifted again. Marcus saw something that made his heart stop. Jesus, not as a painting, not as a concept. The actual man, walking through Galilee, teaching, healing, radiating a light that was almost too bright to bear. He remembered, the being explained, more completely than any human before or since. Jesus awakened to the full truth while still in human form. He remembered that he was not separate from the original consciousness, that he and the Father were one, not as metaphor, as literal reality. Marcus watched Jesus heal a leper, saw what actually happened. Jesus didn't do anything to the man. He simply remembered with absolute certainty that the man was not a sick body, that the man was consciousness itself temporarily wearing a form, and in that remembering, in that absolute knowing, the body had no choice but to reflect the truth. Disease is forgetting, Marcus understood. Healing is remembering, yes. All suffering comes from forgetting what you truly are. All healing comes from remembering. Jesus understood this completely. That is why he could heal with a touch, with a word, sometimes with just a look. Marcus watched Jesus teaching his disciples, "The kingdom of heaven is within you, not somewhere else, not after death, within you, right now, because you are the kingdom. You are the original consciousness wearing a temporary disguise. I and the Father are one." Not special, not unique to Jesus, true for everyone. Every human being is one with the source. They have simply forgotten. These things I do, you shall do also. And greater things than these, not flattery, not exaggeration, literal truth. Every human has the same potential Jesus demonstrated. They simply haven't remembered deeply enough. Why didn't he just tell them? Marcus asked. Why parables and mysteries? Why not just explain it directly? He tried. But the human mind resists truth that threatens its sense of separation. The ego, the sense of being a separate self, fights against dissolution. Even his closest disciples could not fully grasp what he was saying, so he planted seeds, truths wrapped in stories, hoping that eventually the seeds would bloom. And the crucifixion? The resurrection? The vision shifted to Golgotha. Marcus watched Jesus on the cross, felt the agony of the body, but beneath it, something else, a vast calm, an awareness that observed the suffering without being consumed by it. He was demonstrating, the being explained, showing that consciousness is not the body, that death is not the end, that what you truly are cannot be killed. Marcus watched Jesus die, watched the body go still, and then he saw something extraordinary. The consciousness that had been focused in that body didn't disappear. It expanded, filled the space around the cross, touched every person present, planted something in them that would spread across centuries. That was the real gift, Marcus realized. Not the teachings, not the miracles, the transmission. He planted the memory of awakening in human consciousness, a seed that would grow across 2,000 years. Yes, and that seed is blooming now, in you, in millions of others. The remembering that Jesus demonstrated is spreading, accelerating. More humans are awakening now than at any point in history. The vision shifted. Marcus saw the centuries unfold, saw the teachings captured by institutions, saw the message of empowerment twisted into a message of dependency. The church told people to worship Jesus instead of become like him, told them they were sinners in need of external salvation, told them to wait for a kingdom that would come later instead of recognizing the kingdom already within. Why? Why would they distort something so beautiful? Because awakened humans don't need institutions, don't need intermediaries, don't need to be told what to believe. The message of Jesus was a threat to every power structure, so the power structures captured it, domesticated it, made it safe. Marcus felt grief for all the centuries of forgetting, for all the humans who lived and died, never knowing what they truly were. But also hope, because the seed survived. Despite everything, the truth Jesus planted continued to grow, in mystics and saints who remembered, in ordinary people who glimpsed the light, in everyone who ever felt that there was more to existence than the material world allowed. The vision expanded. Marcus saw the present day, saw millions of lights scattered across the earth, people waking up, remembering, beginning to access the truth that had been suppressed for millennia. The great remembering is underway, the being said. Humanity is approaching a threshold, a tipping point where enough individuals remember that the collective consciousness shifts. What happens then, when the threshold is reached? Everything changes, not through apocalypse, through awakening. Humans will remember their unity, remember their power, remember that they are not separate beings fighting for survival, but one consciousness playing an infinite game of hide and seek with itself. And Ellen? Where is she in all of this? The vision shifted one final time. Marcus saw her, not as she had been, not old, not sick, not limited by a body. Ellen as consciousness, radiant, expanded, more herself than she had ever been while physical. She was there, present, aware of him, and she was smiling. Marcus felt her love wash over him, not diminished by death, amplified. Love without the limitations of a body, love without fear, pure recognition of one consciousness seeing itself in another. She waited. Marcus understood. She's been waiting for me to remember, so I could feel her again. Yes, death is not separation, it is expansion. Ellen did not leave you. She simply stopped being visible to your physical senses, but she has been with you every moment, waiting for you to remember how to see her. Marcus wept, not from grief, from relief, from joy, from the overwhelming beauty of knowing that nothing was ever lost. She says she told you so. Marcus laughed through his tears. Of course she did. Of course. The vision began to fade, the vastness contracting, the infinite awareness narrowing back toward a single point. Marcus felt himself becoming human again, becoming limited, becoming Marcus Webb, 64 years old, standing in a study in Vermont. But he wasn't the same Marcus who had touched the relic. He carried something now, a memory that couldn't be erased, a knowing that went deeper than thought. He opened his eyes. The study was back, the books, the lamp, the window showing darkness outside. The being stood before him, still glowing, still patient. How long? Marcus asked, his voice cracked. How long was I gone? In your time, perhaps 10 minutes. In the experience, billions of years. Marcus looked down at the relic in his hand, still warm, still pulsing, but different now. Or maybe he was different. I actually remember, being there, before everything, being part of the choice to create. Yes. And Ellen, I felt her. She's really still there. She never left. You simply forgot how to perceive her. Now you are beginning to remember. Marcus set the relic gently on his desk, stared at it. What do I do now? With all of this? What you have always done. Ask questions, seek understanding. But now you seek from a different place, not from emptiness, from fullness, not from doubt, from knowing. Will anyone believe me if I tell them what I experienced? Some will, some will not. Belief is not your responsibility. You can only share. You can only offer. Those who are ready will recognize the truth. Those who are not will dismiss it. Both responses are perfect. Marcus looked around his study, at all the books, all the philosophy, all the science. It's all true, isn't it? And all incomplete. Every tradition pointing at the same thing from different angles. Yes, there are no false religions, only partial ones. Every human attempt to understand existence captures a fragment of the truth. The error is in thinking any one fragment is the whole. And Jesus? Was he really what the Christians say, the Son of God? He was exactly what he said he was, and so are you, and so is everyone. That was his message, not that he was special, that everyone is special, that every consciousness is a child of the original awareness, an expression of the divine playing at being human. Marcus sat down heavily in his chair. His body felt strange, too small, too limited. After experiencing such vastness, this will pass, the being assured him. The human form takes time to readjust after touching the infinite. Be gentle with yourself. Rest. Integrate. Will I see you again? If you need to. But you have the relic now. It will continue to teach you. Every time you hold it, you will remember more, understand more. The process of awakening does not end. It deepens forever. The being began to fade, the glow diminishing. Wait, one more question. The fading paused. Why me? Why now? Of all the people in the world who are searching, why choose a retired professor in Vermont? Because you were ready. Because your whole life prepared you. Because you loved someone who knew, and that love opened a door. And because the great remembering needs voices, needs people who can translate the ineffable into words. You have spent 38 years learning to explain complex ideas. Now you have something worthy of that skill. Marcus nodded slowly. It made a strange kind of sense. One more thing, Marcus Webb. Yes? Ellen asked me to tell you. Stop reading so much. Go outside more. Watch the sunrise. She says you always work too hard. Marcus laughed, fresh tears streaming down his face. That sounds like her. The glow faded completely. The being was gone. Marcus sat alone in his study, the relic on his desk, the books on their shelves, the silence of the Vermont night surrounding him. Everything was the same, and everything was different. He had spent 64 years searching for the answer to existence. Now he carried it inside him, a memory older than the universe, a knowing that went beyond belief. And somewhere, in a dimension he couldn't see but could finally feel, Ellen was smiling. He had finally understood what she had always known. They had never been separate. Not really. Not from each other. Not from anything. All was one. Always had been. Always would be. And the game of forgetting and remembering would continue forever. Because that was the point. That was the joy. That was why consciousness had chosen to become a universe in the first place, to have the adventure of finding its way home. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He sat in his chair, holding the relic, watching the sunrise through his window. For the first time in 2 years, watching the sunrise didn't feel empty. It felt like witnessing a miracle, light emerging from darkness, the same pattern that had begun the universe, happening again. Every single day, Ellen had always loved sunrises. She would wake him early, drag him to the porch with coffee, make him watch. "You're missing it," she would say. "You're always in your head. Come out and see." He finally understood what she meant. The first week was strange. Marcus moved through his house like a visitor. Everything looked the same, the books, the furniture, the photographs on the mantel, but nothing felt the same. He would look at a tree and see consciousness pretending to be wood and leaves. He would look at the sky and remember being scattered across it as light. He would look in the mirror and see a costume, a temporary disguise worn by something infinite. It should have been disorienting. It was the opposite. For the first time in his life, Marcus felt like he was seeing clearly. He started going outside more, long walks in the Vermont woods, sitting by the stream that ran through his property, just being present, watching, feeling. The relic stayed on his desk. He didn't need to hold it constantly anymore. The memory it had unlocked was part of him now, but sometimes, late at night, he would pick it up, let it pulse against his palm, and new understanding would flow through him, Layers. The truth had layers. Each time he touched the relic, he understood a little more. 3 weeks after the encounter, Rachel called. "Dad, you sound different. Are you okay?" Marcus smiled. "I'm better than okay, sweetheart. I think I'm finally waking up." Waking up? What does that mean? How could he explain the relic, the being, the memory of creation? She would think he had lost his mind. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he said carefully, "about your mother, about life, about what matters, and I think I finally understand some things I never understood before." Silence on the line. Then, "Dad, you're scaring me a little." "Don't be scared. I'm not losing it. I'm finding it. For the first time in 64 years, I'm actually finding it." He didn't tell her everything, not yet. But he started sharing pieces, small things, ideas about consciousness, about connection, about death not being the end. Rachel was skeptical. Of course she was. She had grown up with a father who dismissed anything that couldn't be proven. But she listened. And sometimes, when he spoke, he could hear something shift in her silence, a curiosity she couldn't quite suppress. 2 months after the encounter, Marcus started writing. Not academic papers, not philosophy lectures. Something different. He wrote about what he had experienced, simply, directly, without trying to prove anything, just sharing. He wrote about the void before creation, about consciousness choosing to become matter, about the game of forgetting and remembering. He wrote about Jesus, about what the miracles really meant, about the message that got distorted. He wrote about Ellen, about feeling her presence, about knowing she continued. He didn't know if anyone would read it, didn't know if anyone would believe it. That wasn't the point. The being had said his job was to translate, to put into words what couldn't quite be captured in words, to offer seeds that might bloom in minds ready to receive them. So he wrote. 4 months after the encounter, something unexpected happened. Marcus was in town, buying groceries, an ordinary errand on an ordinary day. A woman stopped him in the parking lot. Stranger, maybe 40 years old, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry," she said. "I don't know why I'm doing this, but I have to tell you something." Marcus waited. "My mother died last month, and I've been so angry at God, at the universe, at everything. But just now, walking past you, I felt something, like a warmth, like everything was okay, like she's still here somehow." She wiped her eyes, looked embarrassed. "I'm sorry. You must think I'm crazy." Marcus felt something move through him, not from him, through him. The same love he had felt from Ellen, the same presence. "You're not crazy," he said gently. "She is still here, and she wants you to know that death isn't what you think it is. It's not an ending, it's an expansion." The woman stared at him, more tears falling, but something else in her eyes now. Recognition, relief. "How do you know that?" "Because someone showed me, and now I'm showing you. That's how it works. We remember, and then we help others remember." She hugged him, a stranger in a parking lot, holding on like he was a life raft. When she let go, she was smiling through her tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know who you are, but thank you." She walked away. Marcus stood there, groceries in hand, heart pounding. This was it. This was what the being meant. Not grand lectures, not published books, just presence, just being awake, and letting that awakening touch whoever was ready. 1 becomes 10. 10 becomes 100. 6 months after the encounter, Marcus visited Ellen's grave for the first time since the funeral. He stood there, looking at the stone with her name on it, the dates that marked her physical existence, but he didn't feel grief, not anymore. "I finally get it," he said aloud. "What you were trying to tell me all those years, about feeling instead of thinking, about knowing instead of believing." Wind moved through the cemetery. Trees rustled, and Marcus felt her, unmistakably, a warmth beside him, a presence that had never left. "I'm going to keep going," he said. "Keep remembering. Keep helping others remember. And when this body is done, I'll expand too, and we'll be together again, really together, without the forgetting." He placed his hand on the headstone, felt the cool granite, the temporary marker for something eternal. "Thank you for waiting," he whispered. "Thank you for believing in me, even when I didn't believe in anything." The warmth intensified, just for a moment, like an embrace. Then it softened, still there, always there, but gentle now. Marcus walked back to his car, drove home through the Vermont hills, watching the sunlight play through the leaves. He had spent 64 years searching for meaning in books. Now he was living it. And every day the memory grew stronger. The forgetting fell away. The truth that the relic had unlocked continued to unfold. Creation wasn't something that happened long ago. It was happening now, every moment. Consciousness continuing to explore itself through infinite forms. And Marcus Webb was finally awake enough to participate consciously. To play the game, knowing it was a game. To love without fear of loss. To live as what he truly was, a fragment of the infinite, having a human adventure, remembering its way home. Marcus Webb spent 64 years asking the same question. Why is there something instead of nothing? Now he knows, and so do you. Because you were there too, at the beginning, before time, before space, before the first light broke the infinite darkness. You made the same choice every consciousness made, to forget, to fragment, to become something small and separate, so you could have the adventure of finding your way back to wholeness. That's why you're listening to this story. That's why it resonates. Not because it's interesting, because it's familiar. Something in you remembers, the peace of the void before creation, the excitement of choosing to become, the love that connects every fragment of consciousness across all of existence. You remember. You've always remembered. You just didn't have words for it until now. The question is, what you do next? Do you go back to forgetting? Back to the illusion that you are small and separate and alone? Back to the fear that death is the end and life has no meaning? Or do you start remembering? Start feeling the truth that Marcus discovered? Start living as what you actually are? You don't need a relic. You don't need an alien visitor. You don't need anything outside yourself. The memory is already in you. It always has been. You just have to want to remember. And then be still enough to let it surface. So I ask you now, have you felt it? That knowing that existence is more than matter and biology? That sense that you have been here before, that you are part of something vast and beautiful and eternal? Have you lost someone you loved and sensed, despite everything rational, that they were still there, still present, still connected to you? Have you looked at the stars and felt homesick for a place you couldn't name? That's not imagination. That's memory, calling you home. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you remember. Tell me what you've always known but never said out loud. Because every time someone speaks the truth, it becomes easier for others to recognize it. And if this story touched something deep in you, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. There are more truths to uncover, more memories to awaken, more stories that point toward the same infinite reality that every consciousness shares. Creation didn't happen once, long ago. It's happening now, through you, as you. And the only question is whether you'll remember in time to enjoy it.